host of Love, Lust, and Lies, and today, on today's show, I'm going to let you know if you are wife material or not. So, let me start by saying this. First of all, we get it confused, a good woman versus wife material. Just because a woman is a good woman does not mean she's wife material. Just like a good man doesn't mean he's husband material. All right? Because we conflate the two because we think, oh, that's a good person there. That they do a lot of good things. They help people. They do this and that. They're a good person. However, good person, good woman is not synonymous to wife material. Okay, let's start right there. Because a lot of times we believe that if a person is good, if they act good, if they do good, they're wife material. No, untrue. And so today, what I want to do is kind of go over the qualities of wife material. And then how men think about wife material. How do we know? How does a man process whether a woman is wife material, whether I'm gonna marry a woman or not? And so what I gotta tell you is, what I'm gonna tell you is, y'all take notes. Understand this, that what I'm telling you is real. It's true. It makes sense. Y'all, I'm the doctor. And the doctor, I'm reading the charts right now. I'm reading some charts right now. All right, so here we go. Let's get started. First thing, let's introduction, if you will. The first thing you got to understand is what makes a person wife material is they give a return on investment. You see, the thing about it is when a man invests his time, money, energy, all of that in a woman, he wants a return on it. So here's the problem that women, the young women make this mistake. They think, that if they show their ass in a short dress, if they got a nice butt, nice breasts, all of these things, and then they be with all these different men, and and then you got that side, one who thinks a man is just physical, and then you have the other side of the woman who says, you know what, I'm gonna get mine. And I'm going to get my money. Because they have these things, then they've decided that, this game, I'm going to get mine because men will pay for it. Okay, but if your goal is to ever be a wife material, you will never do that because of liability versus asset. A man, you become wife material when you're an asset and not a liability. Let me explain. When he's spending money on all these fine women and doing all of this because of her body, because of all of that, he whining and dining her, but he's getting what he wants out of it. You think at the end of the day, you're going to fall in the liability column. See, you think because you getting some money right now. You think he buying me stuff. He got me some red bottoms. He did this. And the truth of the matter is, the only reason he did that is because he getting something from you. And so when a man determines if a woman is wife material or not, he decides based on, does she fall in the asset column or does she fall in the liability column? Does she multiply when I get with her? Does she bring things to the house? Does she put deals together? Is she resourceful? All of those things, is she an asset or liability? If you are the one who just taken, and you just taken and then you become a liability. Now, number one, are you ready? Are you ready to share all things at all times? Are you ready to integrate him in all things at all times? See, until you are ready to share all that you have, all things at all times. Now, I didn't say you had to share, but you have to be willing to share. So whatever you hide, you divide. Whenever you aren't willing to share something, that means in that area of your relationship, it's broken. Okay, whenever there's a broken link in a chain, ultimately it compromises the strength of the chain. Whenever there's a little cut in the rope, okay, so if you're holding on to a rope, if every knot in that rope is not strong, then the rope is compromised. And if you're not willing to share all things at all times, then your relationship ultimately is going to be compromised. And that's how you know I'm wife material. If you don't want to let him in this area of your life, don't marry him. If you don't want to let him in that area of your life, don't marry him. What you hide will divide. And so I always tell people, I said, listen, here's the thing. Just like finances. Me and my wife, she know how much money I make. I know how much money she makes. And see, some people will say to her, well, why you tell your husband about when you make a purchase, we have this rule. If you make a purchase over a certain amount, we talk to each other about it. Well, she got her own money. We have one joint account. She has her account, I have mine. But we talk about everything. We run our marriage like a business. All right, in terms of the finance part. And see, because we screwed up money so long, we figured like we got to do it the right way and it works for us. But we don't hide. See, her friend said, well, I wouldn't tell him nothing. I always stash me a little piece. She said, and think about it. Your grandmama might have said, you stash your little piece on the side and see what you hide will divide. And I'm telling you like this. I'm just simply saying is, if that's what you're going to do, then tell him you're going to do it. Okay? Tell him you're going to do it. I'm sharing. And if he's okay with that, then move forward. But you have to be willing to share all things at all times. Number 2, are you wife material or not? Ooh, and I brought this up there. Have you healed from relationship past trauma? So now listen, now get this. If you still thinking about Pookie, because the way Pookie used to break your back, if you still, and how do you know? How do you know if you still attached to Pookie? How do you know you still attached to Sam? How do you know? Because whenever you think of the person, there is a trigger of emotion. So I often say this, listen to me carefully. I often say the relationship ain't over if you love them or hate them. If you love them or hate them. You know why? The truth of the matter, love and hate are only a few degrees apart. The thing about this, they're both intense emotions. I always tell people, you want to know how you want to know how the relationship is over. It's not over if they love or hate you. If a woman says she hates you, dude, you still got a shot at her. Whoa, for real? I said, because it's an intense emotion. I said, you know, and a guy came to me recently about that. He said, is it over? I said, well, how does she feel about you? He said, she hates me. I said, you still got a chance. And he was like, huh? I said, because the emotion is so intense, she just can't describe it any other way, but she used the word hate. But it's an intense emotion about what she doesn't like about what you're doing. Change that behavior and you can change the way it is. Now, check this out. The worst place to be is indifference. I said, is she indifferent? He said, nah. I said, she still got a chance. When a woman or man gets indifferent, indifference is the place that you are when you don't really care what happens. Oh, okay, you got hit by a car today? Oh, okay, cool. Hope his family all right. That's indifference. When you're indifferent, the relationship is done. It is completely over. Just so we're clear, okay? It's over. And so I just want to tell everybody that. So second thing is, but if you haven't healed from your past relationships, if you haven't healed from the things that haunt you about it or any relationship, then what I would suggest you do is go through the healing process, because anytime there's an open wound and you go into a new relationship, that relationship is going to irritate that wound. Irritate that wound, because what happens is whenever the person gets close to the wound, you're going to remind them of, you're going to jump. You know, if anybody ever got close to something that was hurting on you and you kind of jump before they get there, you're like, oh, don't touch my shoulder now. And that's the thing, that's the way it is in a relationship. If you have not healed from the past trauma, then you're going to jump. You're going to react. You're going to get triggered when that person gets close to it, because it's like, wait a minute, I'm still hurting in that area. Don't get close. And the person doesn't understand that you're hurting. And so they're going to just see this friction, conflict. And what's going to happen? Ultimately, the relationship is not going to work. And so until then, you're not ready. You're not wife material. Okay? Number 3. I wrote these down. Whoo! I wrote these down. Okay. Number 3. You're not wife material, or you are wife material when you can define exactly what your expectations are in a marriage. many people cannot explain what their expectations are. See, the thing is, most relationship hurt occurs when your expectations don't equal your results. Let me explain. So you expected him to be faithful, but he cheated. The result was he cheated. Your expectation was you expected him to be faithful, but the result was he cheated, and that didn't work for you. And so now your expectation was he was going to pay all the bills. But the result is, no, I'm not paying all the bills. You pay half of them. And so what's important is you're ready for marriage when you're willing and you're ready to communicate your expectations to your partner. If you're not willing to communicate your expectations, I guarantee you your results at some point are not going to equal your expectations. Because a lot of people aren't willing to communicate in a relationship. They're not willing to communicate, and that leads me to number 4. Number 4 is you must be willing to communicate even if it hurts. You wifey material when you're ready to communicate even if the subject hurts. Because a lot of people will avoid the subject. A lot of people will avoid what it is that they don't want to talk about because they want the atmosphere to stay good. But here's the problem with that. Everything underneath grows into something. Every seed planted grows into something. You just don't know what the seed is growing into. And so if you're not willing to communicate about your fears, your dreams, your heart, the things that hurt you, the things that you love, if you're not willing to communicate, whenever there's lack of communication, there's always miscommunication. I'll say it again. Whenever there's lack of communication, there's always miscommunication. When you don't communicate, there's going to always be miscommunication because the other person cannot read your mind. You've never discussed it. And you get mad when you say, they should know. We've been together this long. Well, how are they going to know if you've never told them? How? Essentially what you're doing is you're getting mad at them because they can't read your mind. And so what I'm saying is, if you're not willing to communicate about everything, about if he ain't pleasing you, look, bruh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Because what happens with men is because many times, y'all, we haven't been taught to share our emotions. Many times we don't talk about things. And what we do is we just let it, long as everything good, no conflict, we ain't gonna talk about it. But underneath the surface is brewing. Underneath the surface, then you wake up one day and the person says, I'm out. I'm gone. And you're like, what happened? But it's been growing underneath. That's why I say talk about everything. Even the stuff you don't want to talk about, you must talk about it because there's emotion tied to it. And that emotion is motion. All emotion is energy in motion. And if your energy is wrong, it's going to affect the marriage. It's going to affect the relationship. So you have to be willing to talk about it prior to getting married. Prior to. If something's on your mind, if something you want to discuss, what you have to do is facilitate the platform that we can talk. Even like me and my wife used to do. Me and my wife have this system in our book. So you need to get a copy of our book too. In this book right here called The Canion Culture. Inbox me. Yo, this is a great Christmas gift for you. And if you want to be in a relationship, or if you're in a relationship, it's The Canion Culture, Creating Relationships That Last. And what this book is about, it's about creating a culture in your relationship that makes me want to talk. So let's say, when my wife was like, what's wrong? Nothing. That's what I would say. I don't want to talk about it. Okay? Or I would say to her, I want to talk about it when I want to talk about it. She didn't want to talk about it. So what we did was we created a system on how we communicate. We communicate a certain time. There's certain things we can't do. Let me give you an example. So we created this system of communication. So here's how it works. So we'll talk about one issue at a time. We have rules around this communication. I'm going to tell y'all this without buying the book, but if you buy the book, you're going to see it in there. So in here, we did this because it actually helped save our marriage. So what we did was we said we can only discuss one issue at a time. Because you know, when you're talking to somebody, and what do? They bring up stuff. Well, you did such and such. Well, wait a minute. Well, you left the toilet seat up. And so what we do is we discuss only one issue at a time. And then when one person is talking, the other person cannot do three things. You cannot deflect, you cannot defend, and you cannot try to protect yourself. Okay? And what that simply means is you allow the other person to talk about how they feel about what it is they're feeling. Because even if it's not factual, if a person feels it, it's valid, y'all. What we think is because we don't believe what they believe, we don't believe it's valid, but it is. And so now when we created that, then all of a sudden we find out how the other person feels. And then then the other part of our solution is this, is the person who said that what was wrong with them, then the other person can ask one question. And you want to know what that one question is whenever we have an issue? Is what can I do different to solve the problem? What can I do different to help you feel a different way? When you do it that way, now instead of us focusing on the problem, we're focusing on the solution together. It is amazing, y'all. If you don't know, inbox me, let's have a discovery session. I can coach you guys through it. If you're in a relationship, you need coaching with your marriage or whatever, or if you're not in a relationship, you want coaching, hit me up and let's do a discovery session. All right. Ooh, if you marriage material, how do you know if you wife material? Okay. The next one is, I think it's number 5 or 5. Can you a wife, if you wife material, a wife can 10x the man. Now I bet you like, what is 10x? I want you to look up the word 10x. 10x is a concept by this guy named Grant Cardone. He wrote a book called 10x. And 10x simply means that when you 10x something, it means that you set targets 10 times greater than you ever thought you could achieve. And what a wife does, a wife helps a man 10x who he is. Now listen to what I'm saying. If you can't empower a man to be more than he is, to be 10 times better in his finances. If you're not good with his finances, you work on finances together. And reaching his goals and being a father. If you can't help empower him, then you're not ready to be a wife. And I'm not saying because every man that comes to the table with all kind of baggage, I get it. We all do. And I'm going to do one on husbands. How do you know you're husband material? I think I'm going to do that either tomorrow or the next day. And I want y'all to share it with people, okay? But I'm going to just say this. My wife helped me to be more. I have some of the craziest ideas, y'all. I've been in business a long time. And the truth is, I couldn't do what I do without her encouraging me. There are ideas that I've done, things that I've done. I know I probably wouldn't have done them on my own. But, I mean, we've achieved a lot. 8 books, QVC, home shopping channel, reality shows, all this stuff. I never thought I could do that. But when she said, you can do it, I never forget this. And I'm gonna leave you with, I'm not gonna leave you with this. I got one more thing to do. But she told me, she said, when I applied to be on the show, The Biggest Loser, I'll never forget it. There were 7,000 people in line that day. And I'll never forget it. And I was looking at the people, I said, I don't know how I ain't gonna make it. And she got on the phone, she said, listen, she said, I believe. I believe in you. I believe in your mission. I believe in your purpose. And the fact that you are there today means something, and it has something to do with your purpose. Don't look at what you see around you. Look into your heart and everything God put in you, and I believe you'll be successful. I need a motivational speaker like me, needed that at the time. Well, long story short, 7,000 people there that day, I was the only one chosen. And y'all, I almost got out of line. I almost jumped in the car and drove 4 hours home. But that's what a wife does for you. Number 5 or 6, I don't know, you know. Ooh, a wife makes a decision. The word decision means to cut off. The wife makes a decision to cut off other options. Now, the word for the Latin word decision is the word decide, to cut off. Now, when you're going to be a wife, you cut off any other options. And this is the only option that matters. Not somebody that goes in and says, if this don't work, then we'll just let it go. No, a wife cuts off any other options. There is one option. We're going to have a successful marriage, period. And when you entertain other options, what happens is your brain says, let me get something to fall back on. Y'all ever heard that word? Because our parents them used to say, you need to have something to fall back on. Fall back on. Hell, I'm falling forward into this relationship. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm focusing my energy on it. Because whenever you believe there's something to fall back on, what you do is you don't give your all in all. You don't give everything you've got. You don't. Because I always got fall back on. That's it. That's it. And the last one. How do you know your wife material? Is you are willing to walk away. See, a wife says, I know my value. I know my value. I'm willing to work through anything. But the truth of the matter is, I will not let you abuse me. I will not let you abuse me in any form. I will not. I will keep my dignity no matter what. And a true wife, even if they don't get a divorce, they're willing to walk away so you can be by yourself for a while. My dad once told me this. He said this, and I'll never forget it. He said, son, you must be willing to walk away from anyone or anything. Because if you're not willing to, he said, you don't have to. But if you're not willing to walk away, that thing or that person will always control you. Always. And I've always thought about that. And there were times in my life I wasn't willing to walk away. And I'll never forget it. In business, I learned one of the most valuable lessons I will ever learn in business is because I didn't walk away, I stayed and took it. I ended up going bankrupt. But I always tell people it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I became a better businessman, a lot better businessman. Yeah, and this happened years ago. But what I learned from it wasn't what happened to me, it's what happened for me. But had I took that principle to heart and been willing to walk away, my wife and my life would have been a lot different. In business, who knows what I'd be doing. But I think it was necessary at the time to teach me that principle. All right, y'all? That's my time. I'm done until tomorrow. Until tomorrow, remember, every journey starts with one step. Take yours today. Peace.